Welcome to Livestream Stars. I'm Ross Brand. This is the show where we showcase talented broadcasters delivering high-quality content across Livestream platforms. And Livestream Stars is brought to you by Livestream Universe. For all things live streaming, check it out, livestreamuniverse.com. And the website for this show is livestreamstars.tv. At livestreamstars.tv, you can see past episodes, see our schedule of future guests, and check out more about the show. Next week, we have Tyler Anderson. He's the CEO of Casual Fridays. He's also the host of the Social Media Social Hour podcast and head of Social Media Day San Diego. Does a lot of social media stuff there, and looking forward to talking to Tyler. But let's meet our guest for today. Dave Kerpen is the world's leading LinkedIn influencer in page views, ahead of President Obama, Jack Welch, Mark Cuban, Bill Gates. I forget who all the other top influencers are, but you're ahead of them all, so they're not as important as you are. So Dave's also a top contributor to Inc. magazine. He's the CEO of Likeable Local, the co-founder of Likeable Media, and the author of numerous books, including this major New York Times bestseller, Likeable Social Media. I don't know if people can see that, but that's his earlier book. His current book is The Art of People, 11 Simple People Skills that will get you everything you want. I just picked it up recently at Barnes & Noble. A better move is to order it from Amazon, where it's now on sale, but certainly Dave doesn't mind if you pay the full price at Barnes & Noble. And it's a very, very good book, Dave. And that's kind of where I want to get started. You can find out more at theartofpeoplebook.com. And, I was looking through the book, and it's really nice how you have these action steps at the end of each chapter. And then at the end of the book, you have inspirational quotes I don't know what you would call it, but like some type of like test, which I haven't done yet, but I'm looking forward to doing, that kind of determines what your personality is, right? And where you fit on sort of a spectrum. Can you explain what that is? Because I think it's a really interesting thing that you included with the book.
Sure. So it's called the Enneagram Assessment, and it's actually centuries old and more reliable than Myers-Briggs and DISC. And other assessments that more people have probably heard of, but because it's been in the public domain and hasn't had a company really pushing it, it hasn't enjoyed the popularity of some of those other tests. But it's a wonderful assessment. I highly encourage people to check it out. You can get free versions online, or you can get the version of the Enneagram Assessment that's in The Art of People. And the point that I make in the beginning of Art of People, I happen to love the Enneagram, but no matter what assessment you use, the idea is to work on understanding yourself before you try to understand others and influence others. So many people jump into like trying to get what they want without really looking inward. And the Enneagram is one of many ways. It's obviously my favorite way, but it's one way to look inward before you sort of go outward.
Right. In fact, the quote that I used on Instagram and elsewhere in getting ready for the show was self-awareness is the foundation. You had that quote, self-awareness is the foundation of the art of people. And I think most people do think that it starts in how you relate to others, but it first starts with understanding yourself.
That's right. The most important person to understand before you can understand others is yourself, and it really never stops, right?
Right.
You always have to look inward and keep kind of analyzing what your real motivation is for your behaviors.
So speaking of motivation, what made you decide to write this book now? Do you think that people are lacking certain people skills? Do you think it's a generational thing, or is it just you feel like you've gotten to a point where it's all come together kind of for you, and now you want to share it out with others?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little of all of that. When I wrote Likeable Social Media, I realized and spoke about that. I realized that a lot of the things that I was writing about and speaking about didn't just apply to good principles of social media, but to good principles of business. And then when I wrote Likeable Business, I realized that in the same way that those principles didn't just apply to business, but they really applied to people skills and relationships in getting everything that we want. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the best books I've ever read. It's a wonderful book, a timeless classic, if you will, by Dale Carnegie. But one knock I would have on it actually is that it was nearly 100 years ago, and a few things have changed about the way we communicate in the last 100 years, including the internet and social media and mobile apps and all that fun stuff. And so I wanted a way to kind of blend some of the things that I've learned along the way with some of the principles that have helped me in social media and in business, and do perhaps an updated version of that great book.
Well, talking about social media, one of the chapters in the book deals with how who you are online is who you are. There's not two separate existences or identities, and you're really making life harder on yourself if you try and keep the sort of artificial barrier and be one person to one group of people and another person to another group of people, and really separate your professional and personal lives. Obviously, that's easier said than done for people who are entrepreneurs or who make money as writers and speakers and off their personalities, versus people who are more of a cog in the corporate system or whatever, and, feel like the more the information they put out there, the more somebody's got to kind of poke at them or hold them back or whatever. How do you tell people, it's okay to be yourself and still exist in a more, sort of tight-lipped conservative industry or business?
Yeah, great.
Sorry, I know that was kind of a mouthful.
No, it's okay. It's exciting doing live streaming on mobile phones because you have things like battery power to worry about. But I think I have just magically solved that thanks to my amazing wife.
Oh, great.
We have just plugged in. I don't know. I don't think you can actually use this app and see how much battery power you have left. So I'll just take it for granted. And if I drop off, I'll hop back on as soon as I get battery power. So, yeah, it's a good question. I think that ultimately, look, we all have to live with ourselves, and we can be afraid of a lot of things, including what our company, what our employer is going to think, or we can let that fear go and live our lives and be comfortable with ourselves. And I think that I can say with certainty to anyone that's out there that's not an entrepreneur that your lifetime with yourself is going to be longer than your lifetime with the company that you're working at. And so while it might feel like, the company that you're working at, the position that you're in, the job that you're in now is everything, it's not, right? I would even say that to employees of my businesses. It's not. You have a long life ahead of you, and you should do things that will remain true to yourself ultimately. And so one of those things perhaps is how you act and live online, and the person that you are publicly and through social networks.
And what are some of the people skills that you see people lacking, maybe, that you do business with or you interact with socially or whatever? Like, what do you, from all the, the 11 people skills that you talk about on the cover of the book, and you go into throughout, several chapters in each section, what stands out to you the most? Like, if there's one piece of advice that somebody takes away from this today, what do you think the one thing that most people should focus more on and aren't?
Sure. So first, a quick clarification. One of the book title is 11 Simple People Skills. The subtitle is 11 Simple People Skills that will get you everything you want. And the book is, first of all, I can't guarantee that you'll get everything you want from reading the book. Although I have put a money back guarantee on the book. If you're not happy with the book, simply tweet me or email me or send me a message on LinkedIn, and I will write you a check for the cost of the book. But it's really organized around 11 sections of skills, and 53 total skills. That being said, probably the biggest set of skills that I think are still lacking are listening skills. We all know, everyone on this stream knows how to listen, but I would say that everyone on the stream could be better at listening. And I think that so many people, especially entrepreneurs, big thinkers, salespeople, people with lots of ideas. We have all these ideas, and so we're anxious to put them out in the world. We're anxious to talk, when in reality, it's listening that will help us get what we want. And most people really aren't listening. They're waiting to talk. And there's a really important difference between listening and waiting to talk. When you are listening, truly, genuinely listening, you're only focused on what the person is saying, how they're saying it, and that other person. You're not thinking about what you're going to say next. That's a hard thing to do. But when you can get it right, it's amazing how powerful it is.
When you talk about the people skills that you discuss in the book, to what extent do you feel that this is something you kind of innately understood, and to what extent do you feel like you learn this through experience and through hard work and effort and trial and error?
Great question. I think it's both. I mean, I'm asked that all the time. That's probably the top question I get out of after doing our interviews for Art of People is, right, to what extent are people skills just you have it or you don't,
right?
Versus can be taught. Here's what I would say. Of course, some people are more naturally inclined than others. Just like some people are more naturally inclined for all sorts of different talents and skills, right? I am a really lousy painter right now. I was not born with much natural fine arts skill. But if I were to practice painting every day for half an hour, I would become a better painter. And weeks later, months later, years later, after practicing painting every day for half an hour, I would be a much, much better painter than I am today. It's the same thing with people skills. Some people are more naturally inclined than others, but by studying ourselves and studying the art of people and listening and experiencing life and relationships.
Oh, I guess Dave is having battery issues, so he'll be back in just a second. The book is The Art of People, 11 People Skills That Will Get You Everything You Want. And Dave is back, and that worked out not too bad for you. You got another plug for the book, and you're back and looking as good as ever.
I don't know where I lost you, but what I was saying is, if you practice things like people skills every day, you will absolutely invariably get better no matter what natural set of skills you come in with.
I know this might sound like a very obvious question, but I think it's not really, right? I think the answer is not obvious. The question may be obvious, but how do you practice people skills?
That's a good question. And I don't think it's that obvious. You go out and talk to people. You go out and have conversations with people. You put yourself out there to potentially get rejected, but potentially have good, meaningful interactions with people over and over and over again. And most of us, no matter what it is we do for a living, have an opportunity to interact with people pretty much every day. Most of us, no matter who we live with, have an opportunity to interact with other people at home and in our home lives pretty much every single day. So there's really no excuse. We all have lots and lots of opportunities to practice our people skills, whether it's on the train on the way to work and meeting someone new, or interacting with people at work, improving your relationship skills there, or the same thing at home. And so much of the book is based on lessons that I've learned along the way in interacting with people, everyone from people that I've worked with to people that I've worked for to people that I've partnered with to people that have worked for me to my wife and people in my home life.
Do you think that social media has caused us to lose some of our art of people type skills, or do you think it's made us more social when we meet each other? Or, what effect do you think that this last sort of 7 to 10 years of internet explosion, meaning, so much of our interaction takes place now on social media and through text rather than even phone calls and so forth. What do you think that's done to how we relate to one another in person, if it has done anything?
Yeah, so you asked me, has it made it better or worse?
Yeah, that's essentially the question.
I would say yes, and yes. Right. In certain ways, it's made it a lot worse.